the cowboy who saved an Apache woman and earned the right to stand beside her. The sun was slowly setting behind the distant hills, covering the land in warm golden light. Daniel rode quietly along the narrow trail, his horse moving at a steady pace. The world around him felt calm, but his mind was always alert. Years of living alone on the frontier had taught him to notice small changes in the land, broken branches, unusual silence, or tracks that did not belong. Daniel was known in the nearby town as a hard-working cowboy who kept to himself. He spoke politely when necessary, but he never stayed long in crowded places. Some people thought he was cold or distant, but those who truly observed him understood that he simply carried memories that made him cautious. That evening felt different. The air was too still, and birds that usually filled the sky with sound were absent. Daniel slowed his horse and looked around carefully. A piece of cloth caught on a thorn bush drew his attention. It moved slightly in the wind, and something about it felt out of place. He dismounted slowly and walked closer. The ground showed signs of struggle, footprints crossing over each other, disturbed dirt, and marks that suggested someone had fallen or been dragged. His heart tightened. He followed the signs quietly, moving with the patience of someone who knew the land well. After a short distance, he saw her.
An Apache woman lay near a rocky slope, partially hidden by tall grass.
Her clothes were dusty and she looked exhausted, but her eyes were open. She watched him carefully, not with fear, but with cautious awareness. Daniel stopped a few steps away, raising his hand slightly to show he meant no harm. He knew trust was fragile, especially between strangers from different worlds. For a moment, neither spoke. The wind moved through the grass, filling the silence. "You're hurt," he said gently. "Bets." She nodded once, but did not ask for help. Her strength was clear even in her weakened state. Daniel could see she had traveled far. The marks on her boots and the way she held her shoulder suggested she had been struggling for some time. Leaving her there was not an option, but he also understood that forcing help would break trust.
"I have a ranch nearby," he said calmly. "You can rest there until you recover." She studied him carefully, as if measuring his character without words. Finally, she gave a small nod.
Daniel moved slowly, giving her space. He helped her stand, noticing how she resisted showing pain. When he lifted her onto his horse, he was careful and respectful, avoiding unnecessary contact. Once she was secure, he walked beside the horse instead of riding, making sure she felt safe. The journey back to the ranch was quiet. The sky turned darker, and stars began appearing one by one. Daniel occasionally glanced at her to ensure she remained conscious. She did not speak much, but her eyes stayed sharp, watching the land as if she memorized every detail. When they arrived at the ranch, lantern light illuminated the simple wooden house and nearby barns. It was not a grand place, but it was strong and well cared for. Daniel helped her down gently and guided her inside.
The warmth of the room contrasted with the cool night air.
A fire burned softly in the corner, and the smell of fresh wood filled the space. He offered her water first, then prepared a simple meal. Breaths. She introduced herself quietly as Tala. Daniel repeated her name once, showing respect. He did not ask many questions, understanding that stories come when people feel ready to share them. Over the next few days, Tala rested while Daniel managed his usual work. He checked on her regularly but never hovered. This balance allowed her to recover without feeling trapped or watched. Slowly, she began moving around the ranch. One morning, Daniel found her near the horses, speaking softly to one of them. The animal stood unusually calm, as if understanding her presence. Daniel noticed the way she moved, steady, confident, connected to the land. She smiled slightly. They know when you listen.
That simple exchange marked the beginning of their quiet conversations.
Word spread quickly in the small town that Daniel had brought someone new to the ranch. Some people reacted with curiosity, others with silent judgment. Daniel ignored the whispers. He had learned long ago that opinions change like the wind. Tala seemed aware of the tension, but did not show concern. Instead, she focused on regaining strength. She began helping with small tasks, feeding animals, repairing tools, organizing supplies. Daniel noticed she never waited to be asked. She observed what needed to be done and acted naturally.
Their partnership formed without discussion. One worked while the other anticipated needs.
Bass. The rhythm felt easy. In the evenings, they sat near the fire, sharing simple stories. Tala spoke about the land with deep understanding, describing how seasons shaped people's lives. Daniel shared memories of long rides across open plains, speaking more than he had in years. He realized that silence with her felt comfortable rather than heavy. One afternoon they traveled to town together to gather supplies. Some townspeople stared openly. Others greeted Daniel but avoided looking at Tala. Brace. She noticed but remained calm, holding herself with quiet dignity. When a shopkeeper hesitated before serving her, Daniel's steady presence beside her made a clear statement without words. But eventually the transaction continued normally. On the ride back, Tala asked, "Why help me?" Because someone needed help. She nodded, as if accepting the simplicity of his answer. Days turned into weeks, and the ranch felt different. Laughter appeared occasionally, surprising Daniel himself. Tasks felt lighter when shared. Even the animals seemed calmer. Yet both understood that trust was still growing. Tala rarely spoke about her past in detail, and Daniel respected that boundary. Instead, they built connection through action rather than explanation.
One evening, as the sky turned deep purple, Tala stood on the porch watching the horizon.
Daniel joined her quietly. "This place feels peaceful," she said.
"But it wasn't always," he replied softly. She glanced at him, but did not push further.
The unspoken understanding between them grew stronger. By the end of that season, Daniel realized something had changed inside him. The loneliness that once felt permanent had softened. Tala's presence did not erase his past, but it gave him new purpose. Beth. And for Tala, the ranch had become more than a place to recover. It was becoming a place where she could breathe freely without needing to defend who she was. But neither of them knew where the journey would lead. But the foundation had been built, not from dramatic moments, but from small choices repeated every day. Respect, patience, and quiet loyalty. The days at the ranch began to follow a new rhythm. Daniel woke before sunrise as he always had, but now he often found Tala already outside, watching the horizon or tending to small tasks quietly. She moved through the ranch with natural confidence, as if she had slowly become part of the land itself. At first, Daniel expected her to remain a guest, someone who would rest and then continue her journey. But Tala did not act like a visitor waiting to leave. She worked without being asked, learning the patterns of the ranch quickly. She repaired broken fence lines with careful precision and seemed to understand animals without needing long explanations. One morning, Daniel watched from a distance as she approached a restless horse that usually resisted strangers. Instead of forcing control, she waited patiently, letting the horse come closer on its own. Within minutes, the animal calmed, lowering its head as if recognizing her calm energy. "You don't rush them," Daniel said when he walked closer. "They already carry enough fear," she replied softly. "They listen when you listen first." Her words stayed in his mind long after the conversation ended.
As the weeks passed, their partnership grew stronger. They learned to anticipate each other's movements.
When Daniel reached for tools, Tala already had them ready. When she worked near the barn, he silently adjusted his tasks to support her efforts. There were no grand discussions about teamwork. It simply formed naturally. Despite the peace at the ranch, the outside world remained complicated. News traveled quickly in small towns, and people were curious about Tala. Some came to visit the ranch under the excuse of business, their eyes searching for answers they never directly asked. Daniel noticed the way certain people spoke carefully, choosing words that sounded polite but carried hidden judgment. He ignored most of it, focusing on work. Tala seemed to notice everything but reacted with calm silence. One afternoon, they rode into town together to sell supplies. The streets felt quieter than usual as people watched them pass. Tala sat straight on the horse, neither hiding nor challenging anyone's gaze. Inside a general store, conversation slowed when they entered. Daniel greeted the shopkeeper normally, acting as if nothing was different. Tala followed his example, speaking politely and choosing items with thoughtful care. A group of men stood near the door, whispering among themselves. One of them made a comment loud enough to be heard, questioning whether she belonged there. The words were not shouted, but the intention behind them was clear. Daniel did not respond with anger, but instead, he calmly finished the transaction and stood beside Tala, creating a quiet barrier without saying much. His steady presence spoke louder than any argument. Bess. Outside, Tala mounted her horse without hesitation. As they rode away, Daniel finally asked, "Are you all right?" "I have heard worse, but thank you for standing there." "You didn't need saving. Just respect." That simple exchange deepened the bond between them. Back at the ranch, Tala began sharing small pieces of her past. She spoke about growing up learning traditions that connected people to nature. Narration. She described traveling long distances and facing moments where survival depended on trust in herself. She avoided speaking about painful memories directly, but Daniel understood that strength often came from difficult journeys. One evening, a sudden storm approached faster than expected. Dark clouds gathered, and strong winds shook the trees. Daniel and Tala worked together quickly, securing animals and closing gates before the rain arrived. During the storm, lightning illuminated the sky repeatedly, turning the night bright for brief moments. Inside the barn, they stood side by side, watching over the animals. The shared responsibility created a quiet sense of unity. Frowned. "You work like this ranch is yours," Daniel said during a pause. She looked at him thoughtfully. "It feels alive. Places like this deserve care." The storm passed by morning, leaving the land fresh and clean. As sunlight returned, Daniel realized how much he relied on her presence without fully noticing it before. However, tension from town did not disappear. One day a man approached the ranch claiming to offer advice. He warned Daniel that keeping Tala there might bring trouble or damage his reputation. Daniel listened politely but refused to change his decision. After the man left, Tala approached him quietly. "You should not lose things because of me," she said.
"I'm not losing anything," Daniel replied firmly.
"I make my own choices." She studied his face carefully, recognizing the honesty behind his words. Their evenings became moments of deeper conversation. Sitting near the fire, they discussed dreams, regrets, and hopes without needing dramatic expressions. Tala spoke about wanting a place where she could define her own path rather than follow expectations forced upon her. Daniel admitted that he once believed solitude was the only way to survive, but now he was beginning to question that belief. A small but meaningful change occurred when Tala began suggesting improvements for the ranch. She reorganized storage areas, introduced new ways of managing supplies, and even proposed rotating grazing patterns that improved the animals' health.
Daniel respected her ideas, recognizing her intelligence and practical understanding.
Over time, the ranch flourished. Work felt lighter because it was shared, and both of them seemed more at peace. One afternoon, a young boy from town arrived unexpectedly, delivering a message about a local event where ranchers would gather. Daniel usually avoided such gatherings, but Tala encouraged him to go. "Psst. You cannot live only in silence," she said gently. "Sometimes the world needs to see who you truly are." At first, the atmosphere felt tense. But as the evening progressed, people began noticing Tala's calm confidence and Daniel's quiet loyalty. Conversations shifted from suspicion to curiosity. When someone asked Tala about her skills with horses, she explained her knowledge patiently, earning genuine respect from listeners. Daniel watched proudly but said nothing, allowing her voice to lead. By the time they returned home, something had changed. The world outside the ranch no longer felt entirely closed against them. Later that night, sitting on the porch, Daniel looked at the stars and felt a sense of peace he had not experienced in years. Tala sat beside him, her presence steady and warm. Neither spoke for a long time. Words were unnecessary. The connection between them was no longer just about rescue or recovery. It had become partnership, built slowly through trust, shared work, and mutual respect. And though challenges still waited ahead, both of them sensed that whatever came next, they would face it not as strangers, but as people who had chosen to stand beside each other. The season slowly changed, and the air carried the first signs of a harsher time ahead. The mornings felt colder, and the wind moved across the open land with stronger force. Daniel and Tala worked together from sunrise to sunset, preparing the ranch for the coming challenges. Their partnership had grown into something steady and natural. They spoke less about who would do what because both already understood their roles. Tala often rose early to check the animals, while Daniel handled repairs and long rides across the property. Their movements felt synchronized, shaped by trust rather than instruction. Despite the peace at the ranch, tension began building beyond its borders. One afternoon, while Daniel repaired a fence line, he noticed dust rising in the distance. Two riders approached slowly. Tala stepped outside when she heard the horses and watched carefully as they arrived. The riders greeted Daniel politely, but their eyes often shifted toward Tala.
They explained they were searching for someone matching her description. Their words were calm, but their presence carried pressure.
They claimed that people from her past wanted her to return and settle unfinished matters. Daniel did not answer immediately. Instead, he looked toward Tala, giving her the space to respond herself. She stood tall and met the rider's gaze without fear. "My path is my own," she said quietly. "I will decide where I go." The riders exchanged looks, clearly surprised by her confidence. After a few more words, they left, but their visit changed the atmosphere around the ranch. That evening, silence lingered between Daniel and Tala as they sat near the fire. Finally, she spoke.
"There are parts of my past that will not stay quiet forever," she admitted.
Daniel nodded slowly. "You don't have to tell me anything you're not ready to share." She appreciated his patience, yet she also felt the weight of honesty growing between them. She explained that leaving her community had not been simple. Expectations, Responsibilities and old conflicts had shaped her decision to travel alone, but some people believe she should return, but she was still searching for her own identity. Daniel listened carefully, never interrupting. When she finished, he simply said, "You decide your future, no one else."
Those words stayed with her.
In the following days, the ranch faced new challenges. A strong storm damaged parts of the fencing, allowing cattle to wander further than usual. Daniel and Tala rode together for hours, tracking and guiding the animals back safely. During one long ride through heavy wind, they became separated briefly. Tala relied on her instincts, navigating the land with confidence until she found Daniel again near a shallow creek. When their eyes met, relief passed between them without words. Moments like this strengthened their connection. They began to trust not only each other's intentions, but also each other's abilities. Meanwhile, in town, opinions continued shifting. Some people started respecting Tala after hearing about her skills and her role in helping manage the ranch. Others remained cautious, unsure how to accept change. One day, Daniel received news that a group of ranchers planned to inspect properties in the area due to recent disputes over grazing land. Such inspections often created tension because misunderstandings could easily lead to conflict. Tala noticed his concern. "We face it together," she said calmly. When the group arrived, they observed everything closely. Tala walked beside Daniel as an equal partner, explaining new grazing patterns she had introduced and how they improved the land's condition. Her calm explanations surprised many of the visitors. Some who had doubted her before began seeing her differently. After they left, Daniel realized how much her presence had changed his approach to challenges. He no longer faced difficulties alone. Still, emotional struggles remained beneath the surface. Tala sometimes stood quietly at the edge of the ranch, looking toward distant hills as if listening to memories only she could hear. Psst. Daniel noticed but did not ask questions. He understood that healing required space. One evening she finally spoke without being asked. "I used to believe strength meant walking alone," she said softly. "But now I am learning that strength can also mean standing beside someone." Daniel looked at her, unsure how to respond at first. "Standing beside someone means trust," he said carefully. She nodded. The following week brought a turning point. A sudden cold front threatened the animals, forcing Daniel and Tala to work long hours moving supplies and reinforcing shelters. During one difficult night, they stayed awake together, checking on the herd repeatedly. Exhaustion made their conversations more honest. Daniel admitted that before she arrived, he believed his life would always remain quiet and unchanged. Tala shared that she once feared never finding a place where she could belong without losing herself. As dawn finally arrived, both felt stronger not just physically but emotionally. The ranch began thriving again as challenges were overcome one by one. People from town started visiting with genuine interest rather than suspicion. Some asked Tala for advice about horses or land management, recognizing her knowledge.
Yet new pressure appeared when another message arrived from those searching for her. This time, the message carried urgency, suggesting that unresolved matters required her attention soon.
Tala struggled with the decision. She worried that staying might create problems for Daniel, yet leaving felt like abandoning something meaningful. Daniel noticed her inner conflict and spoke gently. "Whatever you choose, it will be your choice. I won't stand in your way." His words showed deep respect, but they also revealed how much he cared. That night, they sat outside watching the stars. The sky stretched endlessly above them, reminding them how small yet connected their lives were. "I thought you saved me when you found me," Tala said quietly. "But maybe we both changed each other. Maybe that's how life works.
The bond between them had grown beyond friendship. It was built on shared struggles, mutual respect, and the understanding that neither controlled the other's path.
As the wind moved gently across the land, both sensed that greater challenges were approaching, challenges that would test not only their strength, but also their commitment to standing beside each other as equals. The quiet balance that Daniel and Tala had built together began to shift when a rider arrived carrying a message meant only for her. The man spoke politely but directly, saying that people from her past were waiting for her decision.
He explained that unresolved matters could no longer be delayed. Tala listened without interrupting.
Her face remained calm, but Daniel noticed the way her eyes grew distant, as if old memories were returning all at once.
After the rider left, silence filled the ranch.
Beth. She walked slowly toward the open field, and Daniel followed at a respectful distance. He did not push her to speak, but he stayed close enough to show support. Fast. Finally, she stopped and turned toward him.
I must go back, she said quietly.
There are things I need to face. Daniel felt a heavy weight in his chest, but he did not argue.
Then you should go,
he replied. You deserve peace with your past. Her expression softened. She had expected resistance or fear, but instead she saw understanding. The following days were filled with preparation. Tala gathered her belongings carefully, taking only what she needed. Barry's sob. She moved through the ranch slowly, touching the wooden fence, the barn doors, and even the old water trough as if saying goodbye without words. Daniel helped ready her horse and packed supplies for the journey. Their conversations were simple, focused on practical details, yet unspoken emotions moved between them.
On the morning she left, the sky was clear and bright.
They stood facing each other near the gate. I will return, if my path leads me back, she said. Daniel nodded. The ranch will be here. She hesitated for a moment, then mounted her horse and rode away without looking back. Daniel watched until she disappeared into the distance, feeling the quiet return to the ranch like a sudden empty space. Life without Tala felt different immediately. The tasks were the same, but the rhythm had changed. The mornings felt longer, and the evenings quieter. Daniel found himself noticing small reminders of her everywhere. The way tools were organized, the grazing patterns she had introduced, the calm behavior of the horses she had trained. He worked harder than usual, keeping himself busy to avoid thinking too much. That even in silence he understood how deeply her presence had shaped his life. Meanwhile, Tala's journey was not easy. Returning to face her past required strength. She traveled through familiar landscapes that carried memories of both belonging and conflict. People she met recognized her and asked questions about her choices. Some supported her independence, while others challenged it. She listened carefully but stood firm in her decisions. She explained that she was searching for balance between tradition and personal freedom. The conversations were emotional but respectful, allowing her to speak honestly about who she had become. As days turned into weeks, Daniel continued managing the ranch alone. One evening, a sudden problem arose when neighboring ranchers argued over grazing boundaries after a storm damaged several markers. The disagreement threatened to grow into something larger. Without Tala's calm perspective, Daniel initially struggled to find the right approach. Then he remembered how she had handled conflicts, with patience and understanding rather than force. He decided to invite everyone to meet at the ranch and discuss solutions openly. The meeting began tense, but Daniel remained calm, encouraging cooperation instead of blame. Slowly, the ranchers agreed on a fair solution. Afterward, one of them remarked that Daniel seemed different, more confident and thoughtful than before. Daniel realized that Tala had influenced him in ways he was only beginning to understand.
Far away, Tala faced her own turning point.
During a gathering with people from her past, she shared her experiences at the ranch and spoke about finding respect and partnership. Some questioned her choice to stay among settlers, but others admired her courage to define her own path. Through these conversations, she recognized that returning did not mean losing herself. Instead, it allowed her to bring new understanding back to her community. One evening, while sitting alone near a small fire, she reflected on Daniel's steady support. She remembered how he never tried to control her decisions. That respect had given her strength. Back at the ranch, Daniel stood on the porch watching the sunset, feeling the quiet stretch of the land around him. He realized that saving Tala had not been about heroism. It had been about connection, and now he needed to learn how to continue growing even without her presence. Days passed, and just as he began accepting the new routine, a familiar figure appeared on the distant trail. Tala rode slowly toward the ranch, her posture confident and peaceful. Daniel felt a wave of relief but remained calm as she approached. When she stopped near the gate, they looked at each other silently, sharing more through their eyes than words could express. "I returned," she said simply.
"I'm glad," he replied. She explained that she had faced what she needed to face.
She had spoken honestly, made peace with unresolved matters, and chosen her own future without pressure.
"I realize something," she added softly.
Standing beside someone does not take away who you are. It makes you stronger. Narration.
Their reunion did not involve dramatic gestures. Instead, they walked side by side back into the ranch, resuming tasks as if no time had passed.
Yet everything felt deeper now.
Not long after her return, the town faced a new challenge.
A dispute between different groups threatened to divide the community again. Because of their experiences and balanced perspectives, Daniel and Tala were asked to help mediate. Together, they listened to all sides carefully. Tala spoke with calm authority, reminding people that understanding required patience. Daniel supported her words with steady presence, encouraging cooperation. The resolution brought unexpected unity. People who once doubted them began seeing them as leaders who could bridge differences. That night, as they sat on the porch watching the stars, Daniel felt a quiet sense of pride, not only in Tala, but in how far both of them had come. Their journey had moved beyond rescue or survival. It had become a story of growth, respect, and the courage to stand beside each other freely. Life at the ranch slowly settled into a new and stronger rhythm after Tala returned. The air felt lighter, and the work felt more meaningful because both Daniel and Tala understood each other better than before. They had faced separation, uncertainty, and personal challenges, and now their connection carried deeper trust. The land itself seemed to reflect their journey, pure. Fields that once required constant effort now grew more balanced thanks to Tala's ideas and Daniel's steady work. The animals were healthier, and visitors from nearby ranches began arriving not out of curiosity but genuine respect. One morning as the sun rose over the hills, Daniel watched Tala guiding a group of young horses across the open field. She moved with calm confidence, her presence steady and strong. He realized how much the ranch had changed since the day he found her injured near the rocky slope. Back then, he had simply helped a stranger. Now, he stood beside someone who had become an equal partner in every sense. Despite the peace, a final challenge arrived unexpectedly. News spread that a powerful businessman planned to expand operations across the region, buying large areas of land and changing traditional grazing routes.
Many ranchers feared losing their independence.
Meetings began across the town, filled with tension and uncertainty. Daniel attended one of these gatherings with Tala. The room felt heavy with worry as people argued about what should be done. Some wanted to resist strongly, while others believed compromise was necessary. Tala listened quietly at first. When she finally spoke, her voice remained calm but clear. She suggested that instead of fighting among themselves, the ranchers should present a united plan that protected their land and traditions while allowing respectful cooperation. Her words surprised many. People who once doubted her now listened carefully because they had seen her wisdom over time. Daniel supported her idea, explaining how unity could give them strength without creating unnecessary conflict. Psst. Slowly, the group agreed to work together. Over the following weeks, Daniel and Tala helped organize meetings, gathering voices from different backgrounds. They traveled long distances, speaking with ranchers, traders, and community leaders. The journey was exhausting, but it strengthened their bond further. One evening during their travels, they stopped near a quiet river. The sunset painted the water with warm colors, and for a moment they allowed themselves to rest without thinking about responsibilities.
You never asked me to stay,
Tala said softly.
Daniel looked at the water before answering.
I didn't want you to feel tied to something you didn't choose, she smiled gently. And that is why I chose to stay. Her words stayed with him long after the conversation ended. The negotiations with the businessman finally took place in the town hall. Many people gathered, unsure what the outcome would be. Tala spoke calmly about respecting the land and the people who depended on it. Daniel added practical solutions that balanced progress with preservation. The discussion lasted for hours. In the end, a fair agreement was reached, one that protected local ranchers while allowing controlled development. Best. The success brought relief to the entire community. Afterward, people approached Daniel and Tala with gratitude. Those who once questioned their partnership now saw them as symbols of cooperation and strength. Back at the ranch, life continued with renewed purpose. The challenges they faced had not only protected the land, but also strengthened their place within the community. One quiet afternoon, Daniel repaired a fence while Tala worked nearby. The wind moved gently through the grass, and the sound of horses echoed softly in the distance. But, without thinking, he realized that the loneliness he once carried had faded completely. He remembered the day he found her, injured, silent, and strong even in weakness. He had believed he was saving her, but now he understood that she had also saved him by bringing new meaning into his life. Later that evening, they sat together on the porch, watching the stars. The sky stretched endlessly above them, filled with calm beauty. I used to believe standing alone made me strong, Daniel said quietly. And now? She asked. Now I know strength can also mean standing beside someone who walks their own path. Tala nodded, understanding his meaning without needing more explanation. Their relationship did not rely on dramatic promises or grand declarations. It was built on small choices made every day: trust, respect, and shared responsibility. As seasons passed, the ranch became known as a place where people from different backgrounds could meet and learn from each other. Travelers stopped by not only for trade but for guidance. Tala taught others about listening to the land, while Daniel shared practical skills learned from years of experience. One day, a young rider asked Daniel how he earned Tala's trust. Daniel paused before answering. I didn't earn it all at once, he said. I just showed up every day and respected who she was. Tala overheard and smiled quietly. Their journey had never been about rescue alone. It was about growth, two people changing each other through patience and understanding. As the story reached its final chapter, the ranch stood strong against the horizon, a symbol of balance between tradition and change. Daniel and Tala continued working side by side, not as one leading the other, but as equals who chose each other freely. The cowboy who once lived in silence had learned that true strength was not in standing alone, but in walking beside someone with mutual respect. And the Apache woman who had searched for her own path had found a place where she could stand proudly without losing herself. Together they built a future defined not by past struggles but by the quiet power of partnership, proving that sometimes the greatest journey is not about saving someone, but about earning the right to stand beside them.